Hello and welcome to another episode of FinTech Focus TV with me, Toby. Today I am delighted to go all the way over to the other side of America and introduce you to Chris Albrecht from OpenFin. Chris, lovely to have you on the show. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having us back.
I'm happy to have you back on the show. I'm also very happy to see a little bit of sun on your face as you come in from the sunny side of America at the moment, as I'm sat here with drizzle over here in London and still got the coats on at this time of year. But I'm a little bit jealous, but I won't hold it against you as we're talking through the rest of this show. So as you say, welcome back. I think this is now maybe time 2, 3, or 4 for OpenFin on FinTech Focus TV over the last 4 or 5 years or so. And it's always a great conversation. I've been really impressed with what OpenFin's done, continues to do. Chatting off screen before with you now, I know it's been another good year behind that, so I'm looking forward to unpicking this. A couple of years ago, we had Adam on the show. We're going to talk a little bit more about what's happened before then. But before we get into all of that, can you tell me a little bit about you, what you do personally, and then also OpenFin themselves, for those who've been living under a rock and haven't heard too much about them so far?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I have been with OpenFin, well, actually in a few months now. It will be 6 years that I've been at OpenFin. Prior to that, I spent about a decade in capital markets, in credit sales and trading specifically. Went from large bank to large hedge fund, and then
it's a pretty stellar CV I saw on LinkedIn earlier on. It's impressive.
Thanks. And then I veered off into the electronic space, and that kind of trended me down this path of being more technical minded and figuring out, well, how can things be more efficient with technology? How can we make trading workflows and market structure overall become much more efficient with new insights and new innovation? And so then after about nearing about 10 years or a decade, as I said, in that space, I then figured, hey, it's time to do something else. And at the time, I was thinking about, hey, let's just leave the industry altogether. Let's go straight into tech startup world. Maybe even move to San Francisco and do the trade for real. And on my way out the door, I was introduced to Mazi and Chuck, the co-founders of OpenFin, and had a number of conversations with them, fell in love with the vision, the concept, and what they were doing, and felt that I was pretty well positioned to actually add some value. Right? It was a great spot for me to blend my personal interests and desire to go toward an earlier stage tech company, but then also leverage my professional experience that I'd been culminating for 10 years in the markets as they were selling into financial services institutions. I knew a lot of people in that space. I understood how those institutions worked. And that's what led me to join OpenFin almost 6 years ago.
You found your happy place.
Yeah, it's been great. I went in with open eyes, and at first, the first few months was definitely a fire hose to the face of information, learning so much about technology and about true enterprise technology sales, which I had never really done coming from a traditional finance background. And Mazi and Chuck were just incredible guides and really helped groom me along the way. And yeah, the 6 years have really flown by in a blur, but it's been incredible. And so across that time, and I continue to say this because it continues to be true, but there's never been a more exciting time for OpenFin than there is right now. And that's what really keeps me motivated and keeps me going.
I've spoken to touching on that point. I've obviously spoken to Adam on the show, but I've also spoken to people when we've done top 1% workplace awards, and found out a little bit about the culture behind the business. And I've got to say, I was super impressed with that. I love the ideas, the things that are being put behind it. I think it's you mentioned there about your relationship with the founders, and it seems like a super supportive environment that allows people to who've got that passion to do it. And I. Yeah, if we shoot back 2 years to when I spoke to Adam, I loved that wasn't a particularly easy time for anyone in the marketplace. It was still very difficult, pandemic wise. There was a lot moving around, but I was really struck, and it was one of I can remember coming off that phone call or that Zoom, pumped up, excited, and enthused about what was happening, because I loved talking, and it was one of the great pleasures of the pandemic for me, well, one of the few pleasures of the pandemic for me, was talking to people who were defying the odds and doing really cool stuff and making things happen against such a difficult backdrop. And we find ourselves now 2 years on with a different set of challenges in the world, more economic than societal, which then has a backdrop onto societal alongside that as well. And OpenFin continue to defy the odds, continue to grow, continue to do amazing things and all that sort of stuff. So tell me, last 24 months, what have I missed out? What's been happening over at OpenFin?
Well, to be honest, we've been very busy here at OpenFin, and so there've been a number of things. So a number of things that we've continued to do throughout that time, which we've always done, which have been integral parts of OpenFin's DNA since day one. But then there's also been this evolution in the product itself, an expansion of really what we offer and the tooling that we deliver to our customers. One of the biggest things that OpenFin has always made really the top focus for us has been security. And we are very much a security first institution. We deliver mission critical experiences to some of the most highly sensitive institutions in the world, right? These large global financial services companies. And so, not to get too technical, but we've done a tremendous amount of work and investment in the security framework of OpenFin to be now at the point where we are co-stable with Chromium releases, which is the most powerful web engine in the world provided by the Google Chromium team. And it's an inherent core part of our product. It also powers every major enterprise browser out there. But why that's important for OpenFin is because now inherently within every new update of the OpenFin runtime that gets delivered to our customers, they have the latest feature set and security elements that come from the investments that the Chromium team is making. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on this because it's very nuanced and very technical, but I bring it up first because it's so critically important. Just to give you a sense, over probably the past 12 months, there have been almost 900 security patches that have that have been delivered to vulnerabilities that were exposed over that period. And
Wow.
Several of those, a large number of those, have actually been zero-day mission critical patches that expose these enterprises to large-scale vulnerabilities. And so that's a big reason why companies use OpenFin, is because we are a security first institution. We solve these problems for them. It's also a big reason why, and I'm sure we'll touch on this later, that we've now started working with the US government intelligence community, purely because we're a security first institution.
And one's got to feed the other, right? So if you think about what that does, you being able to, and I'm second guessing here, but I imagine the ability to say we work with the US government and in terms of security only gives more confidence to the financial services side of it, and vice versa, right?
Yeah, and so security is always an element of the conversation. That being said, we don't go out of the gates like I just did pitching security because it's just a core part of what we do. The other big things that have really happened since your conversation with Adam has really been around the product itself. So we've been very fortunate to work with a large number of very strategic clients out there, and we have very close relationships with them. And so we start to learn and understand how they're thinking about OpenFin, how they're applying the solution to their strategies and their use cases. And we continued to get a lot of common feedback, right? So they loved using OpenFin to modernize and update individual applications. But now there was this strong desire, not only from the institution, but from the users themselves, to solve some of these challenges that exist across the entire desktop. So what does that mean? Well, an average user at a large complex institution uses about 36 applications every single day. Now that's a large number. I'm sure you on your desktop, you've got a lot of different applications open right now. And
Absolutely.
all day, these users
for that.
just, right? I mean, it's hard not to, right? You probably have 20 tabs open in your browser right now, much less, your email, your chat, all of your other tools that you use. And it's even magnified at these large institutions. And so all day, users are switching back and forth between these different tools over 1,000 times a day on average. And that's just crushing their productivity.
Yeah.
Right? And how do we measure productivity? We measure it in time. And so if it takes me 2 minutes, 3 minutes to perform a certain workflow, and I do that 100 times a day, well, what if I can compress that workflow into a matter of seconds?
Yeah.
Because with OpenFin's ability to update everything and unify that experience, well, suddenly I can do a lot more work can be a lot more productive. I can be a lot more thoughtful about what I'm doing. And so how do we deliver on productivity? Well, we have built out a suite of productivity tools. Collectively, we refer to them as OpenFin Workspace, but it's really an all-encompassing product at this point. And we deliver things such as global search. Right? I as a user, I want the ability to search in one place and get results from all of my apps and tools and data sets collectively in one common experience. I can then launch those tools, inject context and workflows and all of that, but I don't want to have to search in one, search in the other, and then search in a third just to get the full picture I need to do my job. Notifications is also a huge problem on the desktop. Right? Users all day, they get hundreds of notifications from all different sources to all different places. Well, OpenFin provides a central notification center for users to get everything in one place, to sort, manage, prioritize what's important to them when they need to do it. We also solve for window management across the board. Because you think you sit down at one of these seats in a large institution in the morning and you spend the first 10 minutes of your day loading and arranging applications across your 6 monitors.
100%, yeah.
It's ridiculous. Why do people still do that? With our solution, you log in the morning, automatically your default workspace gets rehydrated across all your monitors. Everything's exactly where you want it because that's where you saved it. You can switch back and forth between workspaces. You can even get really jealous because your colleague next to you has an even better one and they can share theirs with you so that you can improve yours as well. So these are just some of the many things that we deliver, but these are all extensions that we've really delivered over the past 24 months.
I think it's incredibly cool. And I'm sort of smiling as you're talking as I shoot back to a conversation I had yesterday with one of my colleagues, and we were talking about how, and this is a very specific thing, but I don't know if you know that Slack's moved to huddles now as opposed to the direct call, the legacy calls. Yep. And we're finding ourselves incredibly frustrated with the fact that you sat there waiting, it doesn't have the decline bit, and you can wait 30 seconds for it to be, and the usability of it. I mean, we were just saying, right, okay, that's 30 seconds. You're making 5 calls a day, which someone doesn't reply to. That's 2.5 minutes a day. Then we worked it out and expanded it out, and it's a day's lost productivity per year waiting for people to answer huddles.
That's wild, yeah.
And that's off just 5 missed calls over the course of a day with a product that's designed to make productivity.
But now think if you have 200,000 employees that have that same issue, right? How scalable it becomes. It's a huge problem.
It's an incredible problem, and I think when you're looking at enhanced interoperability, more and more, when you used to have just a legacy enterprise system, and this is what you can deal with, but we're all sat there wanting more and more things from our smartphone and how we utilize that, and everything should just be as easy as possible and as friction free as possible. People will be bored of me talking about this, but productivity, efficiency, friction reduction, optimization, this is what people are demanding at the moment. And I think what you guys have always been very good at is looking at and this is quite interesting from your background, even about the where you've come from and the ability to look at that, you personally, and to be able to sit there and look at it and say these were the frustrations on the other side of the fence, and say, right, how can we actually look at that and how can we improve the experience? And I think what you're doing with Workspace sounds, I mean, it's a bugbear of mine that I'm always looking for things there that can scratch out marginal gains and make people as easy, make their job as easy as possible. I think that's exactly what you're talking about. So tell me about that. You look at it and you're able to tell a story and give a message like that people should be saying, slam dunk, yeah, I get it, I'm in. But we all know that it's not always quite that straightforward when you're talking about talking to people in financial markets in particular, and saying that parting them with something new, however beneficial it is, isn't quite always the easiest thing in the universe. So talk to me about uptake. What's it look like in terms of numbers, of growth? How's it getting on?
Yeah, so it's been pretty amazing to watch. And so we just wrapped up last year, was by far and away our best year ever. Massive growth numbers coming through, and really since the launch of Workspace, pretty much all of the deals that we're signing, really at an enterprise and divisional level within these large organizations, have been centered around Workspace. That's really what's driving this evolution, driving the productivity enhancements. And what's been really interesting recently in this current market, right, where people are now starting to scrutinize, well, how's my workforce performing? How can I improve productivity with everybody else? How can I do more with less? Well, OpenFin's actually become a more integral part of that story as well. And so really over the past 18 to 24 months since we launched Workspace, uptake has been huge. And it's really enabled us to expand outside of our roots, which came from the capital market space, right? As you know, Mazi and Chuck and Adam, even me, we all came from a capital markets background. Those were our networks. That's typically what we were selling into. But now, because Workspace adds value really to anyone that sits at a desktop and uses a lot of applications to do their job, we've found significant traction across wealth management, across retail banking, across corporate contact centers has been a really appealing use case for us because it's so easy to quantify the value that we're adding there. So also in other segments as well, like asset management, insurance, these other areas are now very rapidly picking up on the OpenFin train and deploying a similar strategy to their users.
Incredible. I think it's a really interesting piece there about how it can transfer. You don't see too many places transferring successfully into other areas. And so when I look at those inroads, talk to me about some of the things there which you've, has it been straightforward in terms of that? It sounds like the numbers are suggesting that the uptake's been pretty good, but you've sold into the capital market space, and we know that's never, sometimes not the easiest things. What's the differences? Has it been, is it like, oh my God, this is 10 times easier, or are there different challenges now that you're dealing with?
Yeah. So what's interesting is that with new use cases come new landscapes on the desktop, and what I mean by that is they all rely on different sets of vendors and different mission critical tools or tentpole apps. And so if you think about capital markets, a lot of people have large market data terminals, and then they have a bunch of proprietary internal apps and trading platforms. And we know those use cases inside and out. We can talk through those workflows and the efficiency gains all day. When we go into a new space, like a contact center, well, we don't always know what's on that desktop to begin with. And so we've been doing a lot of work and understanding with our customers, and they've been incredibly helpful. One of our best partners actually even invited us to go and sit for an entire day on their contact center and just observing the users as they go through their day to understand, well, where are the friction points? What do we really need to address? Where does OpenFin fit into this experience? To help us learn and get that level of understanding that we need. And then we've really been building out our partnership and integration ecosystem. Because a big focus for us will continue to be just delivering more value out of the box. And all of these new use cases with new vendors and new providers, well, they offer new integration potential as well. Right? And so we've invested heavily in a really great integration in partnership with Salesforce, great integration with the Microsoft 365 suite, Teams and Excel, Outlook, and so on. And we're building out even more, right? And so ultimately, when we pick up the phone now and we go to these new divisions, new use cases, we already have integrations with some of the mission critical vendor apps and tools that they use. And so they see us as a really strong way to actually get more value from those tools that they're already invested in. Yeah. And that's a big part of our play. We're not saying you need to rip out or replace anything that you're doing. Leverage some of the OpenFin tooling, which is purely additive, ultimately to drive more engagement and extract more productivity from your employee base.
Yeah, I think that there's a couple of things to unpack from that. One of them being something I've always noticed about you guys is there's companies there that talk about listening to their customers, and there's companies there who actually do it. And I think there's the ability to listen and then say what you can't do, and then try and do some sort of half-cocked way of then delivering it back to the end user. But my impression of what you guys are able to do is to get a deeper embedded understanding of what they're talking about, what they need, and then deliver something that's tailored and bespoke to what they're doing. And I think that evolution is probably a big part of the fuel of the success that you've seen as a company and as a business. The other thing I think that's really, really interesting that you mentioned there is the and I've said this before, I think one of the most important roles, or two of the most important roles I think that I've seen in the financial technology space, vendor space for the last couple of years has been the emergence or emergence of significance around the partnerships role. And I think as we move to a much more interoperative world, yeah, that's such an important position to look at. The other side of it is products, and I think you guys have always been ahead of the game in terms of what that looks at. And so product management and the necessity of that CPO and everyone in between it has been such an important important part for businesses to succeed. So I love seeing how you come across, and as you say, that there will be different worlds that you come into, but also a lot that collides in between it. So talk to me about how that sort of fits in. What's the common threads that you see in all the verticals now you're serving? Because we've been myopic in that one world as a business. Our business, we're a group of companies now. We've got one that looks after the SaaS sales world. We've got one that looks after the software engineering across a whole different range of verticals other than financial services. So I'm seeing very similar challenges in our different markets that we go after, that has its differences, but also its common traits. I imagine, I'm putting words into your mouth here, that you'll see something different. But talk to me about the commonalities. What are the things that people are suffering with?
So, so it took me a while to actually think really at a bit of a higher level, right? Because I was so ingrained into these workflows that I grew up doing every single day in my capital markets background. And so I was very hyper focused on the specific applications or the specific workflows that and pain points that we were solving for. But then when I stopped, took a beat, and then I looked around, well, really, we're solving for very high level problems that really any enterprise worker has. It's really these pure pain points around the inevitable friction that exists with a large number of applications and the user being burdened with that challenge of navigating them, right? And they're all used for different purposes. They don't work well together. And so how do we actually get more value from the overall experience? So there's solving the challenges on the desktop today, but then one of the big commonalities that we're seeing across every industry is that the user expectations, the employee experience, and the employee expectations are rapidly evolving as well. Obviously, the workforce just continues to get younger, more digitally centric, but we've all now been spoiled with the experiences that we're getting from the consumer grade land, from the experiences that we're getting from our smartphones, and just how easy and intuitive and elegant that experience is, right? If you think about it, on the desktop, OpenFin is solving for these challenges of using dozens of applications every day in an efficient way. Every day on our smartphones, we use a lot of applications. I don't know about you, but I probably have over 150 different applications on my phone, right? I've got pages and pages and pages. And so, so it's the big difference here is on your smartphone, applications, they work well together. They have common experiences. Like I can search, I can open up my phone and search across all my apps, search for any tool, launch it, all that stuff. All of these core utilities that are very elegant solutions that we're used to, they exist in our pocket, but not at our desk. And
so
that's
I'm going to jump into you just for a second here, because I put something out on LinkedIn this week that is exactly around this, because I saw this when I was scrolling through on the train home and looking at an image, and it's not going to be as good on the podcast, but hopefully it comes out on the video here of all of these things being in your pocket. And for those listening as opposed to watching, there's a guy here with a stereo, a VCR recorder, a radio, a computer, a video player, all of these different things that we sort of had to carry around with us, or literally had to be back at home to deal with. And now suddenly we've got this instant gratification of the phone that says this is how we expect to act. And you talked about digital natives, but I think it's every single element of society. They are so used now to everything being as easy and intuitive as possible. And then when we go to work, particularly in the capital market space, it's almost as if it's made more difficult to be able to deal with it. So you have this beautiful, seamless sort of way of interacting and ordering your food, or watching your movies, or doing anything that's hyper personalized and hyper intuitive to what you do, based in your pocket, and then you get let down by where it is. And that's why I've always loved the OpenFin story, because I think it's just it's so much about that. And as you said, it will be common across all tiers of it.
And so just to expand on that a little bit further, what we're seeing now is we're seeing technology being used pretty heavily as a recruitment tool as well. And so because employees who are sitting at a desktop with an outdated experience, old applications, eventually they're going to start thinking, well, does my company even really care about me and the experience that I go through? Should I start looking around? And then if I go interview with someone else and they show me this incredible experience with modern, intuitive, elegant tools that I would then be using to service my customers, perform my workflow, I'm going to want to go work for them. We're seeing that play out across all industries, but a lot of it is in like wealth advisors, also in hedge funds and asset management, right? Technology is now a very, very strong recruiting tool because employees really need and really crave better solutions.
We say it all the time. It's a big part of our go-to-market. So my internal team here for growing our business, and we talk about this as our go-to-market is my job and my COO's job and our CRO. Everyone across the business, as C-suite, our job is to make it as easy as possible for everyone to do their jobs.
Yep.
And we see technology as doing that. So we want to make it as seamless a process for them to be able to find and source the best talent, for them to be able to deliver to customers. And I go back to when I was first there, and I first did, I mean, this ages me a lot, so bear with me, but I go back to the days there where the last half hour of my day was stuffing CVs into envelopes to send out to people. I go back to the days where we had a room of fax machines that we used to have to sit and wait for those to come through and then work out if they've been delivered on the other side or not. And now we're looking at things there to say, right, how do we get people hours quicker per day? And this goes back to productivity. And explode performance off the back of it, which allows people to be successful, which is then a massive part of retention. And I want to touch on recruitment because we spoke about this beforehand, and obviously it's my day job, and I've got a vested interest in here. There's been a lot of commentary over recent years about the war for talent, and there's been a lot of commentary over tech layoffs over recent years, and I think there's this misconception about a flood of candidates being on the marketplace and how that changes, but my view is that talent that's on the marketplace isn't necessarily the talent that's going to drive businesses to the next sort of level. And I think that they maintains, I'm having this conversation again earlier today, is that all of the best people that we've got out in the marketplace at the moment, which is the talent that everyone wants to hire, will have 3 offers. So I've had 4 or 5 conversations today with my team who've come in here and said, right, how do we deal with this particular situation? And it's always we're dealing with it, and they've got 2 other offers. How do we make sure we're giving them the best foot forward and representing our clients in the best way? So it's raging still, no matter what people like to see headline wise. And there's a lot of good businesses looking to engage and retain the best talent. And I think you guys have spoken about poaching high quality staff, keeping that retention in there, and that comes back to the whole piece around making sure that this is absolutely on point, right? Making sure that the experience that people are getting is makes their job as easy as possible.
Yeah, and that they can be more productive, and they can quantify the differences as well. Big thing for anyone who's looking at the tech stack or the experience on the desktop. Yeah, if it looks nice and is easy to use, that's great. But at the end of the day, I want this solution, this experience to be able for me to make more money or generate more revenue or be more efficient at my job.
Give me more balance,
clients,
give me
whatever.
more time.
Yeah, exactly. And so it needs to make me better at what I do. And so that for sure is a theme that we're seeing at the user level. We're also seeing that quite heavily across verticals at the organization level as well. And so I mentioned earlier some of the interesting things that we've been learning about contact centers. And I'll just touch on that again here briefly because, well, as you know, we started selling to capital markets divisions in large global banks, which we realize now is probably one of the hardest areas and segments to sell into. And we're learning.
At least you cut your cloth at the most difficult part, right?
Yeah, but we've learned a tremendous amount, and then we've kind of just recently, over the past year or so, we've stumbled upon corporate contact centers, and one of the reasons that is so incredibly exciting, not only does it help us get into new verticals because contact centers are really a great horizontal that spans all different industry segments, but it's really around the sheer amount of data and understanding that they have around what productivity means, right? They know exactly how many inbound phone calls they have every day. They know the average duration of call times. They know how many employees it takes to service all of their calls. They know everything about how much time per call is there no speaking because the agent's just searching for information across all their different tools. And it very much is an efficiency play, and we're able to really quantify in a very material way what productivity relates to in terms of dollar terms. And so at the org level, this focus on productivity, this focus on employee experience is just as strong as really at the employee level as you get with somewhere in like a wealth advisor use case.
I absolutely agree with that, and I don't see that changing. I mean, are you predicting that that's a common trend which you see, for the rest of the time, or and I can only see people's expectations of click of a finger. It's not like people are getting less needy, is it in terms of where we're heading?
Definitely, and we for sure see the trend continuing. We're already seeing employees that travel from one firm to another suddenly then raise their hand and say, "Hey, can't you deliver the OpenFin experience here to this desktop? I was using it in the last shop and it was so great. I'd love to use it here as well." So that's also been a lot of fun to see.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no greater recommendation for your product, is it, than someone saying, "I need that once I've ported into my new business." Right. I think that's great recognition for it. You got your customers doing your sales for you. That's where you're really winning, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let's finish by talking a little bit about OpenFin. Yeah, it's an innovative company, a company that's constantly pushing new paradigms, obviously going into new areas, doing exciting things. Can you give us a sneak peek as to anything else that you got on the horizon that's going to be exciting?
Yeah, so there's a lot. I think one of the most exciting things about OpenFin and our product strategy as it stands today is we're on a monthly release cycle. Every month we've got new exciting things coming out that are inherently built and extensions of the product itself. And as you alluded to earlier, we are very much customer led. So much of what we're building and building out now is really direct feedback and suggestions from our customer base. And so just to give you a little bit of insight here, some of the things that we're actively planning out today are around, well, how do I extend the productivity that I get at my desktop through OpenFin when I'm off the desk, on the train, or in an in-person customer meeting away from my desktop? And what I mean by that is, well, how can OpenFin add value to an employee experience on a tablet device or a mobile form factor? So many of our use cases have employees prepping for a customer meeting on their desktop, saving a specific page or layout that has customer-centric information that they would then love to take the exact arrangement of those components, the exact content, and then show it in a person in a meeting with their client face-to-face on a tablet device. Right? That's just a great use case. And it happens more and more across all industries. Well, OpenFin is very well positioned to add value there. And then one of the other really exciting things that we're actively delivering is really around analytics. So if you think about analytics that exist today, right? They're Google Analytics, they're web and app analytics really across the board that are really, really powerful in terms of understanding how a user is really ultimately working within a single application. But what if you want to learn how your user is operating across multiple applications? Or what are they searching for across all these tools? What integrations between these apps are most commonly used? How are they interacting with their notifications that are spit out from these applications? With the ultimate end game is, well, let's see how my top performers are working. Let's get some insights and some shared learnings from that experience, and then ultimately boost productivity of everybody else in the workforce. And so analytics has been something that our customers, once we started just socializing the idea with them, it's really taken off. There's a big appetite out there to understand exactly how your employees are navigating the entire desktop from as opposed to just a single application.
That's huge, isn't it? I mean, I think when you think about where that can go and what you can do with it, you are, despite everything that you guys have achieved, you're scratching the surface really in terms of where it can go. That's got to be a pretty exciting position to be.
Definitely, there's so much more that we can continue to do. The hardest part for us right now is, well, how do we decide what to do first? Because the list continues to grow. But that's really where our strong partnership with our customer base. We're very fortunate to have a number of very strategic investors coming from our customers as well, and so we really partner with all of them to figure out, well, what's most impactful for our users.
Do you know what I love most about it is I can just see the excitement in your face and body language just to talk about where you're at with it. And when you talked about saying, right, am I done with the industry and going off to do something different? I think it's what a blessing to be able to have stumbled into this and and found something there which can, can utilize all of your prior experience, give you access to some new and exciting things, and really sort of scratch that itch on the tech piece. It looks like you've found your home in a spectacular way, and it's great to see everything you've been talking about so far today. So listen, I could be talking for hours on this, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. We've gone down some avenues I didn't even know we were gonna head down, and thoroughly enjoyed all of that as well. So, Chris, I'm going to finish up by asking you, who should be reaching out to you at the moment, and what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so really, anyone that oversees an employee base that's really focused on modernizing that experience, increasing productivity, solving the friction points that exist with a disparate, fragmented desktop. Obviously, a lot of our experience comes from financial services, but we're now expanding rapidly into the public sector and other industries as well. So anyone across the board that's really focused on driving productivity, both for their organization and for their users, definitely would be worth a conversation. And the best way to do that likely is through our website. We definitely have a number of different avenues through there, either a direct email that you can find on the website, or our more modern chatbots and those types of things that gets you directly to us. So there are a number of ways to reach us, but the website's the best place to start.
Another way of becoming more efficient, how those chatbots are, are making us all more productive as well. Chris, I've really enjoyed this. It's we're heading into Easter over here in the UK, and a couple of days coming off, and as we head towards I know it's going to be the start of your day, but it's heading towards the end of mine now. This has been a wonderful way to sign off for me of a really great week. But I love it. I feel energized, enthused, excited about what you guys are doing, and I knew I would do every time we have OpenFin on the show. It gets me feeling the same way. So keep up the great work. Thank you very much for coming on the show today, and I'm going to look forward to. It's not going to be 2 years till we have OpenFin back on again. It's too good to wait 24 months for. So I'm looking forward to having you back on, and keep up everything good that you're doing. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having us. We're always excited to be here.
Absolute pleasure, and thank you all for watching. We will see you soon on another episode of FinTech Focus TV. Thanks a lot.